In today's episode, we are going to be covering what are all the different types of retirement accounts or tax deferred savings accounts. We are going to be going over the pros and cons of 401ks, SEP IRAs, 403, 457 plans. We're going to be going over 529 plans and also health savings accounts. To help us with that, we have Lyndon Gray. He's a return guest. And in previous episodes, we covered things like Delaware statutory trust, 1031 exchanges, and just different topics. Welcome back, Lyndon. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me once again. Always a pleasure.
Now, the reason I wanted to have this episode is when I first started my own company and I was first introduced to a SEP, and then I was introduced to a 401k, like all of these different terms were just very confusing to me. And I wasn't exactly sure why I was doing a SEP versus a 401k or a 401k versus a SEP. So the purpose of this video is to try to shed some light as to why certain retirement accounts or certain accounts are better for certain situations. So let's start off with the SEP IRA. Who is the SEP IRA for, and what are the limits that you can put, and what are some of the deadlines of when you can contribute to the SEP IRA?
Before I get into the SEP, I'll preference this by saying the common denominator here is tax deferral. All of these vehicles have a tax deferral component to them. Wherever you fall into this mix, the bottom line is you should participate to some degree in either one of these instruments. If you're self-employed, if you're working for corporate America, etc., you should be participating in these instruments. Nothing kills me more if I'm talking to someone and they're looking to buy a house or whatever, and I ask some basic questions. Where are you employed? Are you participating in that particular retirement plan? And they say no. And I ask, how long you been there? Oh, I've been there 10 years. I'm like, oh my, that's like leaving money on the ground. Because every time you make a dollar, taxes, Uncle Sam wants 30, 40 cents on the dollar between the state and the federal. So utilizing these instruments help you to build wealth. It can accelerate it because when you make a dollar under the umbrella of these instruments, you're not getting taxed on a yearly basis. So that's a major exponential difference. So to go in directly with the SEP is basically for the self-employed, it stands for self-employed pension. So if you run your own practice, you're a doctor and you have your own practice, you're a gas station owner, you own apartments. People who own apartments and rentals, that is a job, if you will. And certainly you can subtract some of your gross rents and move those dollars into a SEP. And you can do that on a yearly basis and keep building wealth and removing those dollars from the reach of the tax man. So certainly the self-employed person is qualified for a SEP. You have April 15th, just like most tax filers, to contribute for the following year and have that deducted from your gross. So that's the beauty about a SEP. You can put in 10 grand or you can put in up to 60 grand. You don't have to have a set amount annually. You're not locked into any set amount. It's not a contract, but at least you have the infrastructure in place. So when you do have a great year and you say, you know what, I can put in more than I normally would, I'm going to put in 40 grand in my SEP. And the beauty of that is you can then deduct it from your gross income. So you're accomplishing two main goals. You're reducing your take home income, your taxable income, and you're shifting some of those dollars to a tax deferred SEP account, SEP IRA, that now has the potential to grow if you can, if you put it to work. You can put it to work in mutual funds and stocks, or if you're just a passive investor and you're afraid of stocks, at least you can own a T-bill or some CDs in that account and have it grow to some degree. So those are the two main things. You get a reduction from your existing tax liability and you grow dollars tax deferred by utilizing the SEP, and it has a higher maximum. For 2024, I believe the max you can put in is about $63,000. That adds up very quickly. You do that over a 5-10 year period, and you put it to work, you can certainly supplement your retirement nicely by the time you're ready to hang it up.
So this SEP would be for people that are 1099, basically people that are in unincorporated, meaning that they're not like a S corporation or a C corporation or anything like that, basically.
Exactly. So they're self-employed, they're 1099, and it allows you to then fall under that bracket of self-employed and shift your dollars, your earned income into a SEP. Has to be earned income, just can't be money that was gifted to you or you inherited and say, oh, I'm going to put it over here in a SEP. Does not qualify.
If you have an LLC, can you also do a SEP or no?
Independent in terms of how you structure your business, LLC, S corp, C corp, and so forth. As long as you're self-employed, that's really the key. How you structure your business. I'm not a tax professional, so you would want to consult with your tax person as far as whether I have a C corp, S corp, LLC, partnership, and things like that. But the bottom line, if someone is self-employed and 1099, they can, in most cases, contribute to a SEP.
And this is kind of where I started off. Like, so before I became unincorporated, meaning before I became the Morales Group Inc., I basically started off with a SEP. Now, the cool thing about the SEP is that the limit is a lot higher. So if somebody makes $100,000, you can literally do 62,000 in your SEP, which now brings your profit down for your business tremendously, which means you pay taxes on a much smaller amount. Now, here's what I was going to ask you. Like, let's say I have a corporate job, corporate America, my company provides me with a 401k. Or let's say I'm the owner of a company, like let's say I'm the owner of Morales Group and I have a 401k, which I'm the plan administrator. Would I still be able to have a SEP if I have like a different business, like a side hustle, like almost like if I had rental properties or something like that? Could I combine the SEP and the 401k, or are they you can't have them if you already have a 401k?
So yes, you can combine them, but you can certainly have two parallel paths at the same time. One is your corporate 401k that you contribute. You work that 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. On the weekends, you're a tax person and you do taxes for people, or you consult because you're a psychologist or whatever, or you fix cars because it's a hobby and you're a mechanic. Those dollars that come on the weekend, that can be put into a SEP. So you can have those dollars go into a SEP, and then basically your corporate dollars go into your 401k. And a lot of times people who do a side gig and they get paid, they just dump all of that money into a SEP because they're doing their main job that's kind of covering all their expenses. So they can basically take their dollars that they earn from their SEP and kind of put that away into a SEP account.
What happened for me eventually is I became incorporated. And when I became incorporated, I believe my accountant, for whatever reason, said now I needed to set up a 401k for myself and I needed to set it up for also my employees if I had employees at that time, which I did. So, what is a 401k? What is the difference between a Roth 401k and a traditional 401k? And in what scenarios can you utilize this? And what's the max that you can contribute to either one of these?
So the 401k has been around for quite some time. It's really a good way to strategically save by taking a percentage of your income or your paycheck on a monthly, semi bi-monthly basis and putting that away. And if you work with a corporation that has stock, a lot of times they give you, you can buy stock within your plan, and they might match that contribution. They might match it up to 5% max. So that's a very good deal because you can really front load your 401k and max it out. The annual max is like for 24, it's been raised. It's about 23,500, I believe. So you can take that percentage out to get to that max by December or get to it sooner. Some people front load it and say, I want to get there by September and front load it. So once you're in there, the company gives you certain options. It can be Vanguard, Fidelity, American funds that administer the 401k, and you will have the selection of mutual funds that you can choose from. Uh, the companies do not provide advice in terms of where to put your dollars. So a lot of times when I work with clients, I tell them to email me their plan and their options, and then I would give them some guidance. I would say, okay, put 20% in this one, 20% in international, 20% in domestic, 10% in technology, and so on and so forth, and get a nice mix to meet their allocation. Sure. So as their 10% from their salary comes in, it's split up each way depending on what percentage they choose to go into each sector. Or if they have company stock, they may say, okay, I want 50% in the company stock and the other 50% in some complementary mutual funds. The 401k Roth, mostly there isn't a 401k Roth per se. What happens is someone has a 401k and they've been with that company for 10, 20 years and they retire. Sometimes you can roll over your 401k into a Roth IRA or go into an IRA rollover and then strategically shift it to a Roth. And you see that sometimes. And the main benefit there is Roth accounts are fully tax free as opposed to tax deferred. 401k assets and IRA assets are tax deferred. Roth assets are fully tax free after they're held for at least a 5-year window. However, if you had 100,000 in a 401k and you roll it into an IRA rollover, and then you say, I want to roll that into a Roth, whatever dollars you roll into a Roth, you're taxed. So sometimes we strategically attack that by doing maybe 25% each year. So 25% will take 100,000 and do it in quarters. Each quarter we'll move a quarter into a Roth because you would have taxes to pay on that 25,000, and you do that after the fourth year, then you have a Roth that's fully tax free in perpetuity as long as you continue to own that particular Roth. If you just open a traditional Roth without having a 401k into an IRA rollover, then the IRA rollovers and the Roths have a maximum contribution of 7,000. If you're older than 50, it's 7,000. If you're less than 50, it's 6,000. So though you can see how the 401k is much more attractive because you can put in up to 23,000 in a 401k, whereas the IRAs and so on, or you can only put in 6 or 7. However, if I may, you can combine a Roth or IRA rollover or IRA, excuse me, with a 401k. So if someone is maxed out their 401k and they're doing well, they can put another 7 grand into or 6 grand into an IRA rollover for that year. You can't just dump more money in there. Only 7,000 per year, 6,000 per year, depending on your age. And the Roth, however, not everyone will qualify for the Roth. The Roth has income limits. So if you're making a certain dollar amount and you're married or single, you might not qualify to put monies into a Roth because you're above, I think, maybe 125,000 in income or something like that. So you don't qualify. However, you can still put money into an IRA, a simple IRA.
I think one of the choices, like for a lot of people that work for somebody else who may not really have a choice, but for people that are self employed or people that are the plan administrator of their 401k, I think that the custodian is very important as well, too. I've heard, and I've never, like, I don't know how to read the fees or anything like that. I think they're very well at hiding a lot of the fees. What are your thoughts on different custodians? And then also, like, recently I went self-directed on I think my 401k, which means that now instead of having 4 or 5 different vehicles that my custodians provide, like 5 different plans, now I have the entire market, including real estate, available to me. Can any of these accounts be self-directed as well too, or do they have to be with like a specific custodian as well?
Depending on the size of your operation, just by sheer size, you would have to have a custodian an administrator, because handling the books becomes a little more problematic when it's 100, 200, 300
Yeah.
people and so on. But if you're 1 to 10 people and so on, that's a manageable situation where you can maybe not have an administrator, or you might have an administrator just for like the annual filing, but not for all the detailed granular stuff. But yeah, you certainly can do it, but it depends on the size. And if you're able to do the self custodian
Directed.
or direct, then certainly you have an open chassis, if you will, to a lot of options from A to Z. And then the real estate piece as well. There are certain custodians out there that you would have to get involved who can be the custodian for a real estate transaction inside of an IRA. You're buying XYZ in Riverside or whatever. They would work the details out to get that properly papered up to hold it inside of a retirement account. I have clients who have done that, and they've owned properties inside of their IRAs. And it's a great thing, because once they sell that, they don't have to worry about doing an exchange. It's a sheltered account. So now that transaction is basically tax free, tax deferred when they take the income out later on in life.
And I think a lot of people don't know that, and I didn't know that as well too. And that's something that we did recently. So it opens it up to real estate loans if you ever want to be like a hard money lender or somebody lending money at 10% interest, or you can buy a property under your own name. You can flip occasionally, not as a business practice, but there's just a lot of open doors. So that's called the self-directed option, which basically means that when you're in a custodian, they have 4 or 5 different options. The self-directed opens it up to the entire marketplace, probably for more sophisticated type of investors or people that are a little bit more on the sophisticated part. So let's go into like a 403B and a 457. What is that?
So 403B, 457, they have to do with the public market. And when I say public, I mean non-private companies like you're at IBM or Disney or Fox or whatever. Those are 401k. Any private company is a 401k that they set up. When you're in the public sector, whether you're a police officer, firefighter, a school administrator, work for your professor at UCLA and so forth, they come under the umbrella of 403B or 457, and that's the same goal, however, is tax deferral. They just have different titles, 403B versus 401k. But the common denominator there for all of these instruments is still tax deferral. They all have limits and they grow tax deferred. And later on in life, you can roll either one of these instruments into an IRA rollover and also keep the tax man at bay and grow those assets for the rest of your life. And at some point, there's something called a RMD, Retirement Minimum Distribution. So the IRS is basically saying, we've given you this opportunity to grow these assets and not pay taxes on those assets and let them grow. But at some point, we're going to say, okay, based on your age and the value of your account, we want you to take out X amount of dollars, a percentage each year, 20 grand, 15 grand, depending on the size of the account. So on $1 million account, and that someone might have to take out 75K on an annual basis, and you can set that up to send it out on a monthly basis as a paycheck to their checking account, which I've done for clients, so they don't have to wait for December to take it all and meet their uh, distribution demands. They can just do it like they get a check each month, hit in their checking account as a electronic fund transfer.
What is a Coverdale or a 529 plan?
So that sleeve tends to address the educational bucket. So your kids are 3, 5, 7, 8, etc. You want to shelter some money for them. These are the tools that are out there that allows you to shelter monies for the kids. The beauty about the 720, 529 plans, they grow tax free, providing they're utilized for education. So if a sibling decides I'm not going to go to XYZ University, I have a rock band, we're going to go on the road, we're going to make it in the music business. and he wants to use those dollars to buy a car or whatever, or a van to take his instruments in, then that's a taxable event. Whatever dollars are in there, they'll show a cost basis, and then whatever it builds up to will be capital gains. If those monies aren't used for education, then they'll be taxable. However, if they say, yeah, I'm going to go to MIT, I'm going to buy a house, I need a plane ticket, and so on, monies from that, or buy a apartment for with roommates and so on, he can take that money from the 529, anything involved in his education, the flight to get there, the housing to stay on campus or off campus, and of course, tuition and materials. You can take from that set from the 529, and that's all tax free because you earmarked it for education, even the flight to get to the university, the money taken out for that. You don't pay any capital gains on that.
If I were to do a 529B for my children's future education, does that help me out in terms of taxes? Meaning, like, does it take away from the, like, if I make $100,000 and I put $10,000 for my children's education, does that make the taxable amount 90,000, or is it more like a Roth where it doesn't really help out in terms of taxes?
Unfortunately, it doesn't. You don't get a write-off on that, like you when you make a contribution to your 401k or 403b or your SEP. You can't deduct it from your gross income. When you make a contribution to your 529 or other type of custodian accounts or other educational vehicles, you don't get the write-offs. And one of the things about the 529 also, normally if you have a custodian account, by law, that person, that child, when they reach the age of majority, it's legally their money, even though mom or dad name appears on there as custodian. When they reach 18, it's legally their money. So they can go to court and say, this 100 grand is mine. The judge is going to agree with them because they're 18 or 19. However, with the 529, the money and the custodian remains the custodian's money as far as control. It's earmarked for the child and their education. But if Johnny doesn't want to go to school, he wants to fulfill his music and do that, but his sibling wants to go to school, then you can then take those dollars from the 529 that were earmarked for Johnny and redirect them to another sibling who is going to school and have the tax advantages with that.
What are the limits of amounts you can put in a education account?
The limits go with the gift tax. I think it's up to like 17,000 annually. Some people can front load one and do the exemption. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but someone could say, I put 300,000 in my one-time contribution in this 529, and you'll have to check with your tax person to get the exact numbers and the gift tax and the lifetime exemption and things like that. Some people can strategically, if they're liquid like that and they just want to really shelter monies for future college, then they can front load it and have it work for them. But yeah, there are certain maximums that you reach to put monies in there.
What about health savings accounts? What are those?
So health savings account is another tranche where obviously in the title health savings account, if you can put X amount of dollars into a health savings account, you do have that ability to reduce that from your gross income. And so it's deductible and it grows inside of a health savings account. Think of it as an IRA, but specific to health matters. And you can basically, if you go to the dentist and you need to pay a copay, you can give them a debit card and it can debit from that health savings account. Or you go to CVS and you pick up your medication and you have to pay a fee. You can give them that debit card and it can debit that health savings account. So you can utilize it for all things health related, your normal checkups and visit to the doctor that you have to pay out of pocket. You can use that and so on. Or your deductible. Someone has surgery and there's a 5,000 deductible. You could take it from the health savings account that you've had for a decade and you've made contributions and now there's 100 grand in there. So the health savings account is another good vehicle to really create another bucket for emergency funds and still have that money grow. You can own Apple stock in a health savings account. Imagine doing that and having Apple double and triple. and now you have more. And if you sold the Apple stock under the umbrella of the health savings account, it's not a taxable event because it's done under the umbrella of the health savings account. And now you're using it for health savings, what it was required for. It's not a situation where you have a capital gain to report or anything like that. So it's a good tool to kind of complement all the other instruments out there for savings. And I would add this too. All of these instruments are pre-tax dollars, so it helps you to basically reduce your taxable income. But in some cases, especially in California, where we are the wealthiest state in the union, and there's a lot of wealth people who do quite well, and they're looking to save more than these instruments allow. The annuity is where which comes in to complement this, because an annuity is not pre-tax, but it's after-tax dollars. After you've made your income, it's been taxed, it's in the bank in CDs and so on. Now you maxed out your retirement vehicles, you've funded your health savings account and so forth, but there's X amount of dollars you've been rolling over in CDs at 2% for some time. Someone can say, you know what, I'd like to remove some of that taxable income and shift it over to an annuity that can then augment my 401k, my IRA, and so on. And an annuity, depending on which ones you select, they can provide you a pension, a personal pension later on in life. You can say, okay, here's $500,000 in an annuity, and some annuities are paying 6, 7, 8% in this higher interest rate environment. And then a decade from now, I want to start getting income from that. And you can set it up where you have income for both you and your spouse as for the lifetime. So those are good complementary tools and annuity to
Mhm.
the instruments we've discussed, the 401k, the 403bs, the IRAs, the SEPs, because they all have limits, whereas an annuity does not have a limit. You can contribute to an annuity with a dollar amount. And the beauty about that, you now shift money that's exposed to taxes. Every time you make a dollar, Uncle Sam wants 40 cents when it's outside of these shelters. And then you shift it into any of these shelters we spoke about, 401k, IRA, and so on. And an annuity, now those dollars are tax deferred. So an annuity still has a tax deferred name on it, just like these instruments. The only thing there is not pre-tax dollars, it's after-tax dollars.
So basically, an annuity would be like if you're looking to set yourself up for a tax-free stream of income, basically, in the future.
You get tax deferred growth, but when you take that income out, that's reportable. That's 1099 income. So you don't get
Okay.
it fully tax free. There's some other tools out there using life insurance and so on that they're more detailed and involved that I've utilized for clients who are looking to get tax-free income later. And there are tools you can use, but just in general, an annuity has the same kind of things like a 401k or a 403b. They both grow tax deferred. And then when you start to take the income later in life, that income is taxed at whatever bracket you're at that time in your life.
I think we covered a lot. Anything else as it relates to different types of retirement plans or different types of accounts?
I think we hit everything that I'm aware of. The main thing I would say, like I said early in the beginning of this conversation, get started. If you're working, if you're self-employed, if you own apartments, that rent roll, just don't go dumping it all in CDs. You look for some vehicles to park that money. Utilize a SEP, utilize a Roth, utilize an IRA, utilize a 401k if you're in corporate America, because they definitely add up over time. You're there for 20 years. It's like, whoa. I had a client who was a nurse practitioner at Kaiser that retired. And Kaiser had a very generous, they had a 401k plus pension and so on. She rolled over 1 million plus from her IRA, from her 401k, and that money is now like 2 million and change, and plus she gets a pension. So most companies now don't really give pensions. They're really leaving the onus to the individual to use a 401k to really save and augment their retirement dollars later in life. So certainly get started sooner than later.
Yeah, especially if your employer has a match, I would say that would be like one of the key points. So, where can people find you?
I'm here in Los Angeles. My number 310-283-4147. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I want to say thank you, Lyndon, for taking the time to be on the show. If you've missed any of his other episodes, I would make sure to check him out on the channel. Today, we covered what are all the different types of retirement plans. We covered 401k, we covered Roth, SEPs, 403, 457s, 529 plans, and health savings plans as well too. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you feel that this would be helpful for somebody, make sure to hit the share button. Thank you again, Lyndon. To our viewers, until next time.